Getting a dominant victory over a former UFC champion should be one of the best moments in any fighter's career, especially while riding a 9-fight UFC win streak and after an entire lifetime of training. But the night Merab Dvalishvili beat Jose Aldo and climbed the cage to celebrate, all he received was thousands of boos from MMA fans who just watched one of the most boring performances in history. You could probably count on one hand the amount of grapplers and wrestlers that got popular in the UFC just because of their fighting style. I mean, it's a super short list. Khabib has got to be on there, and Damian Maia if you're an old school fan. Point is, guys like Chael Sonnen, Henry Cejudo, and DC all had to lean into their personalities before fans got on their side. Merab Dvalishvili had been training his entire life to get to that moment, and he suddenly realized none of it would mean anything unless he could make a change. Because let's face it, if there's one thing Merab already had as a fighter, it was extreme cardio and insane toughness, something that probably can only be explained by going right back to the start, to his home country of Georgia and the beginning of his martial arts journey. But first, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Ekster. Ekster produces the most convenient, sleek, and professional wallets and card holders around. They're all RFID protected, allow you to access all your cards at the press of a button, and come in a variety of colors and designs. The best part is, whether you're an iPhone or Android user, Ekster sells a tracking card that allows you to locate your wallet from your smartphone if you unfortunately misplace your wallet. Ekster is offering 30% off to everyone watching this video from September 4th until October 2nd. Remember to use code FIGHTING at checkout to unlock further savings on top of Ekster sales.
Hey man, I had a really tough life, when I born 1991, that's where we left Soviet Union. Everybody lost their job. It was no electricity in the country. It was no gas in the country, and lots of criminals. And Georgian people are tough people, and everybody was gangster, and you have to be gangster to protect your family.
Talk about a tough upbringing in a country that is basically struggling to even survive.
So when I was really young, and some people don't have a food, man. Even it was very tough time,
Merab was also born from a small village and moved to the big city and was treated like a bit of an outsider, and no doubt, this meant that he was fighting at least someone from pretty much childhood.
And then when I was kid, we are tough people, and we used to fight a lot in the school and everything. And if you study and if you're a good boy, it doesn't make sense because all the gangsters was making money and all the gangster has the power, But all my life, since when I was a little kid, I was fighting everywhere. If I have to defend myself or defend my friends or help somebody or something, I see something wrong or I don't like rude people, and I was always punching and fighting.
When he wasn't doing that, Merab was like most kids playing soccer and basketball. But at 13, he found Judo and immediately felt like he was meant to be a champion.
Judo was very popular in my country because Judo is Olympic sport and also wrestling. And my dream was to become Olympic champion. After I started training in Judo, I stopped hanging out outside. I have a goal to be one of the guys who represent my country in Europe or in the world. And then I wasn't interested anymore like this stupid and bullshit things,
I think most people can tell Merab is a dedicated individual, but if you wanted to know where that drive came from, well, a 13-year-old Merab dedicated himself to martial arts in order to sort his life out. Even then, Merab was setting a relentlessly high pace, which is possible he gained from his training in another grappling art at the time, Kridoli, a traditional Georgian martial art that he also started to explore.
I know always I want to be something special, but before it was bad life.
So for Merab, it seemed like martial arts were something special that he could pursue. He continued his judo training for the next 7 years, eventually becoming a black belt, but also picked up sambo as well, which as we know is super popular in that region of the world. But in 2008, the Judo Commission ended up changing the rules, which didn't sit well with Merab.
They changed the rules, you cannot grab the leg anymore, however was my style, I was grabbing legs and take people down.
It was around 2010, when he was about 19 years old though, that the popularity and interest in MMA had reached Georgia.
We call MMA Brzolat Sebizgareshe, which is mean fight with the no rules. The first MMA fight I watched, that was Fedor's fight, Fedor Emelianenko's fight.
The sport was basically in its infancy in the country at this time. No big gyms, and nowhere really to seriously train. But Merab wanted to get involved, and heard about an open event going on.
I can just jump in and fight, and that's all I did. And then I was a little worried because I didn't know sport, I wasn't never training, and that was new for me. They give me opponent, my opponent was martial artist, but more karate guy. So I was fine because I know how to people take down. I was strong and my cardio always was good.
And in just this one fight, Merab got a taste for what MMA was about, and he absolutely loved it.
He was coming, I was taking down, and the people was screaming, people was yelling, I was so excited, and then that's what I love, wow, this is my sport. I feel it, I feel the energy, and then I said, this is my sport, I found it.
Now, with a clear idea of basically what he wanted to do with the rest of his life, Merab started dedicating himself to this new sport, hoping to make a life out of it.
MMA was a new sport, but we was just do wrestling or running or lifting. It was just everybody was learning, everybody was trying, we was trying best. It wasn't best, but it was growing,
But the problem was, there just wasn't anywhere he could really get the level of training he needed in Georgia. Despite that though, he actually still managed to get a bunch of amateur fights under his belt.
I have 10 fights win in Georgia, but those fights doesn't count, so I have to start from zero in the US.
And of course, the mecca of MMA is the US, somewhere people for many years have traveled to chase their dreams. Merab landed in New York in 2012 with just one friend and absolutely zero idea how to even find an MMA gym, let alone how he was going to afford to start training.
When I'm in the United States, I want to become professional fighter, and my goal was always to go UFC, but first I cannot even find the MMA gym. When I land the US, I know what I want, but I have one friend, and then this my friend, he don't know. He when I asked I want to training in MMA gym, he bring me to a boxing gym.
He was not having a good start so far, and it turns out the first place he'd gone to had already tried to screw him over.
So basically the coach was lied to him, and so I training the gym, but and then I see that this coach was bullshitting. He wasn't real coach. He was boxing, not even good boxing coach. Why I came here United States, because I was training better in Georgia,
But luckily, in that part of America, you do have fantastic coaches. And one of the most iconic duo is Serra-Longo and Matt Serra. Matt is obviously famous for being in the UFC and winning the welterweight title, knocking out GSP, and Serra-Longo, who helped him do it, but also trained Chris Weidman to knock out Anderson Silva. Then there are Aljamain Sterling, Al Iaquinta, and a bunch more. Merab came under their wing, and he could finally begin his journey as a professional MMA fighter. But the regional scene on the East Coast is a different beast. There's talent all over the place, and Merab's debut did not go as planned. He lost a majority decision to Darren Mima and instantly had doubts.
I lost, and then I'm like, wow, maybe I'm not a good fighter. Maybe I'm not good enough to be UFC fighter. Make big mistakes, and my opponent was more experienced than me.
In his next fight, Merab would pick up another win in the ring of combat, but his decision for his next fight almost derailed his entire career.
I take short notice, and I wasn't ready for this fight, and the guy beat me with strategy, technique. I almost give up. I was thinking, if I lost now this small organization, how I'm gonna go in big organization UFC, and especially that time was very hard to go there. I was thinking maybe I should retire from MMA.
Merab kind of just slowed down his training, started hanging out with the new friends he made, was socializing, and started to let his dreams slip away. But he started to miss the competition and couldn't just live a normal life, and so he completely rededicated himself to the sport.
I realized this is my time now. If I give up now, 5 years later, I will be late. I cannot never get this one back, and I have to work hard. I don't care if I don't make money.
After taking a year off, Merab started running through people on the New Jersey regional scene, where just 1 year later, he was fighting for the Bantamweight Championship. But then, he'd get a bit of news that would change the future of his career forever. Dana White was going to be coming to the next Ring of Combat event and bringing his show, Looking for a Fight. But honestly, he was also there to watch his opponent, future Bellator interim champ Raufeon Stotts, who was 8-0 at a time that looked incredible as the champion in VFC.
Then especially paper his plight and like his everything. Yeah,
Wow.
to bring this guy to the show, and everybody was thinking that this guy can beat me and he can go UFC.
He knew it was his chance to go to the UFC, and he had to take it. And in just 15 seconds, Merab knocked him out with a spinning backfist. In one moment, all his sporting dreams came true. He was given a shot in the UFC, he'd made it as a pro fighter, and could finally work towards what he always wanted, a world title.
You know, I knew that was my chance. If I win, I go UFC. If not, then I have to fight here, local fights, or go to Russia, beat some Russians. I was so happy. I realized my life changed.
All the 12-hour days of construction grinding his way every day had paid off. But unfortunately for Merab, it's not like he suddenly had it easy. From his very first UFC fight, he was facing adversity. He came out with his normal, relentless style and scored 11 takedowns and 7 minutes of top control, but he still lost a split decision. His bread and butter, which was his wrestling, had failed him. Then in his next fight, he pushed a relentless pace against Ricky Simone and got submitted at literally the last second. Either way, Merab had come into the UFC and ran straight into a brick wall. He again began to question if he was even good enough, if now that he earned his place, he even deserved it. But if you've learned anything by this point, it's that Merab will absolutely never quit on himself, and he started running through the bantamweight division. But there was just one problem. Each one of his next 6 wins were all by decision, and although they were high-paced fights, Merab was trying to smother guys, and that just didn't really get him any traction from the fan base. In fact, people were calling him a boring wrestler going into his first high-profile fight against Marlon Moraes, a former title challenger. Merab absolutely ran him over and scored his first stoppage win in the UFC, proof that he was more than just a wrestler. He earned himself a performance of the night and a fight with the former champion Jose Aldo, and he had finally started to turn some fan eyes towards him, and that's when he absolutely blew it. Probably spar yourself watching back the fight with Jose, but it was supposed to set Merab up with a title shot, and it did the complete opposite. He took a beloved legend and held him against the fence for 15 minutes. The fans were not happy, and neither was Dana.
Merab didn't go after it like, you know, a guy that looks like he wants to fight for the title. I always say this, we're the bells and whistles guys. We lay it out there for him. We give you the opportunity to shine.
And the fact that his teammate was champ only made things worse. You can't be out there eliminating the top contenders, but decline to fight the champ is just not how the things are supposed to work. But Aljamain Sterling had taken Merab under his wing after he arrived from Georgia. He'd even traveled to Merab's village with him, so there was no way he could fight this guy. But then Merab started to completely rewrite his own story. He had pretty much fought himself out of a title shot with the Aldo performance, and after Aljamain Sterling defended his belt again at UFC 288, Sean O'Malley stepped in the cage, ready to stare down the champ. But there's one memory MMA fans have from that post-fight speech, and it involves a very fancy-looking jacket. Merab was in the cage, and he stole O'Malley's jacket and started jumping around like a madman. It was awesome. He got under O'Malley's skin, and it was another show of personality. It was again enough for fans to start seeing Merab as more than a non-native English-speaking wrestler, and see some of the antics he started to become known for. I mean, his social media started exploding with hilarious training clips doing just the most ridiculous stuff. Not including jumping into frozen lakes and cracking his head open, and just shadow boxing in the rain like a madman. And when a fan suggested that Merab fights Aljo anyway, he straight up climbed up railings to get after the guy.
You want it or you don't? Hey, once Aljo kicks Cejudo's ass, I want you to get in the octagon with him in San Antonio. Hey, right here, baby. Motherfucker, I will fuck you in the face, okay? Hey. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, where you go? Oh.
And after his teammate lost the title, he still wasn't the next in line, as Sean O'Malley decided he'd rather run it back with Chito Vera, who was definitely not the #1 contender.
I'm back with breaking news, everybody. So we know the champ Sean O'Malley called out #6 guy Chito to avenge his loss. Of course, Chito Vera will beat skinny guy again and he will become UFC new champ. Already, Chito Vera called out #4 Corey Sanhagan to avenge his loss. Of course, Corey will beat Chito again and he will become UFC new champ. And Corey will call out #5 Peter to get his loss back. Peter will win against Corey again. And Peter will call #2 this handsome guy. And of course, this handsome guy will beat Peter again.
Instead, Merab needed one more big victory, and he booked a fight with the former champ Cejudo. In the lead up to this fight as well, Merab was going off. Henry's family had moved from Mexico to the US when he was young. And so at the press conference, Merab pulled out a Mexican flag and declared he was going to beat Henry on behalf of his former country.
I'm gonna make Mexico proud, okay? I'm gonna represent Mexico on February 17th. Let's go!
And then Merab backed all of that up with a dominant victory over the former champion. He was picking him up and running him across the cage. It was the kind of performance that saw him finally break through. And with that big win, he's finally secured himself a shot at the UFC title. And honestly, going in, there's a big part of the fan base that would love to see him take that belt home to Georgia, if only because the guy has done so much to warm himself in the fans' eyes. 2 fights ago, it would have been crazy to say that some fans wanted Merab to win more than Sean O'Malley, but it's just a testament to the hard work Dvalishvili has been willing to put in. And it's just impossible not to enjoy this guy's fun-loving and wild personality.
I'm living in my dream, man.
Win or lose against Sean, Merab has managed to do something truly special in winning so many fans to his side. And regardless of how this one plays out, I think that a 12-year-old kid who wanted to be Olympic champion and represent Georgia would be very, very proud. And besides Merab, it seems like someone else will have to win 12 in a row before getting a shot at the undisputed title. So check out my deep dive on the unique rise of Tom Aspinall and why he may be the one to take the GOAT's O.